Marina Bay hosted a Grand Prix that briefly ran in the 60s and 70s, but the Garden City re-entered the calendar for good in 2008. We missed it for a couple of years, but it was great to come back to the Singapore Grand Prix. And here's our track, 4.94 kilometres long, and overtaking chances into the first corner, into turn 14 at the end of the Esplanade, and now into turn 16 in the newly reprofiled sector that we first ran on in 2023. Still though, it's punishing and tough on the brakes, and the heat and humidity will take an effect on our drivers. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position. And starting next to them is George Russell. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Tsunoda, Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Antonelli, Piastri, Leclerc, Lawson, and Alex Albon, Fernando Alonso, Hadjar, Carlos Sainz, and Stroll, Doohan, Bortoletto, Ollie Behrman, and Pierre Gasly. Hülkenberg and Esteban Ocon lines up at the back of the grid. With preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track. And joining me in the commentary box today with the best view on what is about to unfold and some strong views on the action we're about to see, Naomi Schiff. Look, we know it's not where you start, it's where you finish. But let's talk about the start now. What's there to help the drivers get away well?
Well, the race is certainly not won in the first lap, let alone turn one. However, what you can do is prepare yourself ahead of time. Visualize what could potentially happen, different scenarios and where you could place your car. And that will better prepare you to make the right decision with instinctive timing.
Okay, radio check, radio check.
Radio check.
Okay, you've got a drive-through penalty. You've been given a drive-through penalty. All right. Okay, no issues with tyre wear for now. Keep taking care of them. Okay, you've just started the final lap of the race. Final lap. You might experience some understeer now that you're in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as soon as possible.
checkered flag.
Fantastic effort today, this weekend, guys. Thank you so much for continuing to push.
Here's the checkered flag. Here's our winner. By George, he's done it. Russell wins.
And let's not underestimate how hard it is for these drivers to know exactly what's happening with the conditions. When you're in the car, you have drops falling onto your visor. It's hard to know whether those drops are actually sticking to the track, if water's building up, or if it's still dry. So it's a tough call to make, and it is really a question of risk versus reward. So great decisions made by this driver today.
It's what they've all been racing towards, waiting for them. High above the pit lane is our podium. And for the lucky three, it's time to stand on it. And taking his place on the top step of the podium, he gave it some hustle. Well done to George Russell. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us.